and goth kids.
This is the only advice you need with business success speaker Matt Hyams.
This week we're talking about leaders versus managers, what the difference is. We're going to get into STDs, Jim Croce, and goth kids.
All right, let's do this.
You can be a manager or you can be a leader, but you can't be both. They're not the same thing. Managers are people who are hated. Their spouses don't like them. Their children resent them. They typically have a goth child who's only goth because their manager parent comes down hard on them, wanting them to be quote unquote normal, screaming at them, "Why can't you be normal?" And the kid's like, "Because I'm not normal, and my name is Azrael." They paint pentagrams on the wall. The manager's daughter's a whore. That's a manager. If it's a male manager, the wife's cheating with the neighbor who's actually uglier than her husband. But like Hannibal Lecter said, we covet what we see every day. So that's what her options are. So she goes for the neighbor because he pays attention to her. It doesn't matter that he's got a huge gut, that hangs over her face while he's having sex with her in the basement, sweating and smearing sweat all over her cheeks. Doesn't matter. He's nice to her, and he pays attention to her, and he thinks she's beautiful. That's why she's having sex with that neighbor, and also the neighbor across the street, and the neighbor across the way, and all of the men on the street and the neighboring streets, because they pay attention to her. Because managers, they don't pay attention to people. A female manager, however, her husband's not cheating on her because she doesn't have a husband, because she's divorced, because her husband couldn't take it anymore, all the demands. So the male manager's wife will be cheating on him, and the female manager's husband will have divorced her. And the gay manager's spouse, female or male, will also be cheating on them. And the husband of the female manager is also going to be cheating on her with uglier women, prostitutes, and carrying home STDs knowingly to get back at her and then giving them to her. Most managers are riddled with STDs from spouses who are cheating on them and getting back at them with the STDs because of the way they're treated. Because managers can't turn off that annoying manager quality when they get home. And their employees would like to give them STDs too. But they're not sleeping with them. Well, most managers might sleep with their employees. Leaders will too. That's where they cross over. That's the only place where they cross over. But managers like to tell people what to do. They're on power trips. And they don't think beyond being a manager. They're never going to go above that because they're like, I'm a manager now. They think they're a boss. They're not the boss. They're a glorified employee and they don't inspire. That's the main difference, is that they don't lead. They just tell you, hey, get back to work. What are you doing out of your seat? You could take your lunch now. Why were you in the bathroom for so long? These are the questions that the manager is concerned with, how long you're in the bathroom for. A leader's there to inspire people. A true leader will inspire, which isn't to say you won't have a leader who has a managerial mindset, but that's just someone who looked out, and they're probably riddled with STDs too. The leaders don't care how long you're in the bathroom for. So a leader's there to inspire. A leader tells people, I want to get to know you. What are you about? Where do you want to go in life? I want to help you get there. A leader says, we're all on a team. There's someone who sits down with you and says, hey, what are you eating today for lunch? And you're like, oh, I'm having a turkey sandwich. And they say, I love turkey sandwiches. And they probably have a story about turkey sandwiches that will inspire you. And if they don't love turkey sandwiches, they go, I've never been able to get into turkey sandwiches, but people love them. And they start that dialogue with you. That brings them closer to the people who work for them. They might say, hey, what's going on in your home life? And the employee might say, well, I've got a goth kid. This might be that manager I was talking about. And he worships the devil, the guy's saying. And he stays in the basement in the darkness and he wears capes. And I don't know what to do with him. And the leader says, you know what? Why don't you try and get on his level? Get into the goth. Read about it. Maybe give yourself a goth name. If he's Azrael, why don't you be Onyx? Tell your kid, hey, I want to be Onyx now with you. Go to a cemetery with them. Visit an Edgar Allan Poe museum. Get the whole family involved. Have his birthday at a cemetery. That's what a leader does. A manager says, what, your son's goth? What a freak. Anyway, you're late, and it's coming out of your lunch hour. Managers are why people leave jobs. Leaders are why people stay in jobs. A manager says, hey, you're late. You know what the other person says? You know what? I'm going to be late forever because I'm never coming back. And a leader says, hey, I've noticed you've been coming in late lately. The leader's concerned. He says, has something been going on? And then you're like, yeah, I just can't figure out what to eat in the morning. And the leader say, well, have you considered yogurt? Leaders love yogurt. And the person might say, well, I'm lactose intolerant. And the leader has options. They don't stop there. They say, well, get a non-dairy yogurt. And the employee might say, well, they have a lot of sugar in them. And the leader can say, not every brand. Find one that doesn't. Then they might say, well, I don't want to eat a yogurt every day. And the leader might suggest, how about eggs? Well, the employee might say, well, then I got to make them. How about cereal? Then I end up eating the whole box. Oatmeal takes too long to make. Smoothie. I don't own a blender, but if I did, that would be the one. And then you know what the leader does? They buy a blender for them. Notice they didn't say this employee is so difficult. They won't take any of my suggestions. They kept going. So they found the answer. It was a smoothie. And they tell them, eat a smoothie every morning and make that your breakfast every day. So you don't have to think about that anymore. Give it a try. That's what I do. I eat yogurt every day. I don't think about it. And they get them that blender, arrives in their home. You know, a leader brings everyone together, does company outings with people. They say, let's get together after work, everyone, and have a drink and get to know each other. The manager, on the other hand, says, hey, did you hear about Josephine? She got into a car accident because she's a dirty drunk. She doesn't know how to drive. And her insurance is going up. They're taking her car away and smashing it. And the truth is, Josephine is most likely not a dirty drunk, and the car accident may not have even been her fault. There may not have even been an accident, but we'll never know because we're listening to the manager who spreads rumors and hates women. A leader says, hey, I know you were hired to answer the phones, but what other talents do you have? Maybe the person says, well, I play guitar. And the leader says, well, I'm creating a new department then at the company just for you, the guitar department. I'm going to set you up with an office, and you'll be head of guitar. Then the person can answer the phone and says, hey, you've reached Bill in guitar. How can I help you? Now they're a corporate guitar player. So a leader finds out what other interests you have. The manager doesn't care what interests you have. You could tell your manager, oh, hey, I play guitar. You know what they're going to say to you? Get back to work, Bon Jovi. Who we all know isn't known for playing guitar. Yes, he can play guitar. He's not known for guitar playing. It would have been better for them to say Richie Sambora. But the manager doesn't know who Richie Sambora is because they're not curious. They don't read. They don't find out who the other members of the band are. They don't read the liner notes. And truthfully, they barely know who John Bon Jovi is either. They just know it's someone who sings. So now you're going back to work not only annoyed that your manager doesn't care about who you innately are, but also that you've been compared to a songwriter frontman and not a guitar player. Granted, a handsome winning frontman with a great voice and good hair, but that's not your talent. You didn't tell your manager you were a winning frontman. You said you played guitar and it was overlooked. Now every time you're caught not working for 1 second, they say things like, hey, why don't you take a break from playing Stairway to Heaven and make yourself useful? Or you're coming back from the bathroom, God forbid you took too long, and they're like, hey, Jim Croce, this ain't the time to take a break. Which makes you feel a little better because at least Jim Croce was a guitar player, but you're also slightly confused that they even know who Jim Croce is and that he's their reference for guitar. It's a strange reference, and that puts you in a weird state of mind. A big manager question is, aren't you supposed to be somewhere doing something? They love asking that. You run into a manager in the hallway, they go, aren't you supposed to be somewhere doing something? Jimi Hendrix? You might get that too. You run into a leader in the hall, they go, hey, I know you. What's happening? Your life good? Everything good? If you say yeah, they're like, great. If you say no, they're like, let's go take a walk. Find out about it. So that's the difference between a leader and a manager. Figure out what you want to be. All right, everybody, that's it for this week. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.